This is picture I drew for my wife of Daenerys Targaryen from HBO series Game of Thrones. It has nothing to do with Attack on Titan, but thought you might like to look at it. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for more.
Attack on Titan, Episode 3. A dim light in the darkness of despair.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on just the magnificent tale of Attack on Titan. This is, by time, I'm just really enjoying these episodes and can't watch them and do reviews for them quickly enough. Now I understand that it's only going to be a 25 episode series. I have also already, I think I'm on volume 4 of the manga, so I've read ahead and can obviously make comparisons between the two. This particular episode is pretty cool because it's, the last episode kind of left us with Keith Shadis, who's he's kind of like the angry drill instructor, that's going to whip everybody into shape over the next 3 years. And honestly, he's real angry, and probably because he's a drill instructor, and I mean, he also resembles like a wrinkled penis. He just is not a happy looking fellow. So everything ended off with, obviously with Armin and Eren and Mikasa and a bunch of other recruits kind of, being verbally berated by him. That's how this chapter picks up, or this episode picks up. And this is where it kind of deviates from the manga. In the manga, it was pretty much just, there was very, very little. It was pretty much just like they went through training and then they came out. And I don't know if it ever winds up flashing back to some of this stuff in the manga, because, again, I'm not that far. I think chapter 13 maybe or something like that. But this was really kind of cool because instead of just saying like, okay, now we're trained and we know what's going on, this is actually an episode that shows a lot of that character building and that character development. So the episode starts out right where the last one left off, and Keith is it's basically just verbally assaulting and berating everybody. Where are you from? I'm from here. Oh, you stupid, worthless piece of shit. And just basically being a dick to everybody. So. One kid says, he wants to be part of the military police and give his body and something to the, in defense of the king. And he says, the king doesn't want your body. And he's just a real asshole. So this is going on for a couple of minutes, right? And then all of a sudden you go, there's like dead silence, and everybody kind of looks over because Keith goes and looks over at this girl, this recruit, and she's sitting there and she's just munching on a potato, right? And this was one of the highlights of the episode for me, because there wasn't a ton of action in it, but this girl was just so, I don't know, just so honest and pure. It was funny. He comes over and he's just like, why the hell are you eating a potato? And she's like, well, because I was hungry. And he's like, well, why do you have one? And she goes, well, because, I don't know, I walked by the kitchen and there was some boiled potatoes, and and he's like, why'd you decide to eat it now? And she goes, well, because otherwise it would be cold and it wouldn't be as good when it's cold. And she's just so honest. So he asks her something else about it, like, why are you doing this? And she's like, do you mean like why do people like potatoes? So you think he's just gonna haul off and nail her, because he's been verbally and physically assaulting all the recruits so far. And then she goes in this act of kindness. You gotta realize that a lot of these recruits we find out a little bit later on that a lot of them, basically were just kind of guilted into joining up, and they can enter when they're 12 years old. So I mean, I have a 12-year-old, and honestly, I don't think somebody at 12, no matter what situation you're in, is ready to be trained on all these different things they do and using these weapons and obviously becoming these killing machines. But again, I guess different world, different strokes for different folks. But she goes and in this act of kindness, she just goes and breaks the potato in half, and she says, well, here, do you want half? And he's just like, half, and you think he's just going to haul off and flip out. And he actually kind of looks real calm for a second there, and then it kind of goes and it flashes to the other recruits, and they're sitting there talking later on, and they show her, and she's just running, and she basically just has to run in the training yard. And she was basically, and they're like, oh, she's been at it for 5 hours now, And they're like, yeah, I think she was more upset that she had to miss dinner. So this girl is comical. What I was getting at with the different recruits and signing up at younger ages is that many of them really, because of the food shortage with everything that happened with Wal Maria being lost and everything like that a couple years ago, there's a lot of kids that they've just grown up and they're starving. You know what I mean? So joining up over here is something that they can do to get steady food. Get steady meals. So It's just kind of comical because, like I said, here she is going and running around, and she was instructed by Keith that she needed to basically run until she could run no more, until she collapsed of exhaustion. So this whole episode, though, is pretty much just a character building and development episode. Some of the other recruits are talking, and they mention that they find out that Eren and Armin, are from the same city, and obviously that was the first one to fall. That was, people in that city actually saw the colossal titan, so they were asking him questions about it. And like anything, there's a legend that builds around it, because some of them are like, I heard that he could step over the wall, and Eren's like, no, he wasn't that big. He could see over the wall, but, he didn't just step over it. So you see how stories get twisted when you weren't, there firsthand for the account of it. And then they ask him about the armored titan, and he says, well, to me, that's what it just looked like a regular titan. And they're like, that's what regular titans look like? And everybody's kind of crowding around him, and then he goes and he's eating his food, and he kind of has like a flashback of his mother getting eaten, and drops his spoon in there, and it's just, you can see that it still affects him, it still bothers him, but it's also the driving force behind what he wants to do. He wants to kill these titans. So so everybody's going, okay, whatever, maybe we should back off or what have you. And then we kind of see this rivalry start to brew between him and this other guy, this guy Jean. Jean basically wants to join the military police, the King's Guard, because they pretty much get to live in safety. They get to live behind the last line of defense, the last wall. And although they are there to protect the king, ultimately people look at it as like it's a cushy job. You get more food, you get more, and you're in relative safety. You're the last line of defense. Everything else has to go to shit before you're really called upon for anything. So Gene makes some smart-ass comment about how, I heard you wanted to join the Survey Corps, and he's like, yeah, he was going to kill Titans, right? And Gene's just like, and he goes, and then Eren says, well, I thought you were going to join, I heard you were going to join the military police. It's a little bit soft and weak, or whatever, basically kind of saying like you're a pussy for doing that. So there's a little bit of an exchange between the two, and it looks like they're going to go at it. We know Eren's kind of a hothead, and then they wind up just kind of, saying, hey, whatever, we'll agree to disagree, and Eren goes and walks away. Mikasa goes and follows him out, and we all know Mikasa's the strength of the two anyway. She's the one that's the badass biatch. But she goes and walks by, and Jean, compliments her on her hair or something like that, in kind of a weird, creepy, perverted moment. But she goes outside, and her and Eren talk a little bit, and she basically, says, are you okay? And, that sort of thing. We wind up going and seeing Sasha from earlier finally goes in and she collapses, and she's just laying there, and she's been running all day, right, for eating this damn potato. Finally collapses of exhaustion, and then we see these other two female characters. Well, one of them is a younger girl, go up, and it's kind of funny because all of a sudden Sasha goes and it's like these red eyes and looks like feral, and you think like, what the hell is wrong with her? And I'm not sure if there's something else that's going to come from that, that she is some kind of monster or something like that, or if this was just sort of the anime's way of showing that like she was just so just ferociously hungry that she winds up looking at this girl who had brought her some bread and some water because she knew she'd been running all day. So it was just ultimately an act of kindness. She eats the bread, just munches it up real quick. And like I said, Sasha to me was like the center point of this whole episode because there wasn't a lot of other things going on. There was some character development and such. But so she passes out, and then the older girl winds up coming and kind of throwing her over her shoulder and take her to her bed and says that she's doing it not out of kindness, but because she'll owe her a favor then. So the next day shows us everybody's learning for the first time how to do the 3D maneuvers, and they have to start out by, they've got these kind of they almost look like things for like swing sets or whatever, precariously balanced with these belts, and the belts attached to your gear that you have, and you basically have to hang there in midair and balance. They crank you up and you got to balance. Well, everybody's going at it, doing whatever, and Mikasa's doing great with it, and Eren though cannot seem to get the hang of it. Man, he keeps flipping upside down. He keeps whatever. He's very frustrated. And it's really just kind of a brief interaction. But later on that night, he's pretty pissed at himself. He's basically beating himself up. He's like, how the hell am I ever going to fulfill my dream of killing all the Titans if I can't even, stand up in here? And Mikasa's like, and everybody's kind of befuddled, really, that he talks to, because they're like, there's no tricks or tips that we can give you. It's just kind of like basic balance, man. I mean, you just hang there. You're just hanging there, and you just don't fall forward, Because the way these belts go on, like your hips and your thighs and whatnot, and they attach, you pretty much, once you get raised up, you're just hanging there, and it's kind of trying to see if you can hold your balance once they eventually get this gear with these cool harpoon things that shoot out and swing them all over the place, So he goes and he winds up asking a couple of the other guys for help, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I thought you were a big bad man by yourself." And then he winds up, and him and Armin are walking around, or Armin are walking around, and he winds up going and talking with these other two guys, Reiner and Bertholdt, and asking them, if they can help, him. And they basically tell him the same thing. There's not much I can tell you beyond it's just basic balance. We do find out some cool backstory though, and see a cool little flashback of Reiner and Bertolt. They were from a small village in the mountains, so these, even though these three walls are around here, and there's 1.2, 1.3 million people that there was. It's a sizable area. There's mountains and cliff sides and all kinds of cool things, and streams and rivers and forests and everything else. So they were in this small village that really wasn't notified in time. All of a sudden they just heard I think about like Godzilla movies when I was a kid, or like even like Jurassic Park or that type of thing, because all of a sudden you just hear boom in the distance, and then boom, and it just gets louder and louder. And that's what they said basically happened, until all of a sudden they realized that the Titans were there, right? And neither one of them really remembers what happened. It was all kind of a flash of craziness, just trying to get out of this village. And out of the two of them, one of them basically wants to, go and learn how to fight so he can, kill Titans and reclaim his village. And the other one's pretty much just been scarred for life by the whole, Titans came and ate half the people in our village and we barely got away, probably lost some loved ones, right? And he pretty much just wants to be part of that military police, that King's Guard if he can, So they wind up going off and for a walk with Armin and Eren, and are just kind of talking and explaining this whole deal to him and everything. And Eren's just like, he vows that he's going to just try harder the next day, and to do the best he can to obviously get this gear working, or to get upright, because he hasn't been able to stand upright. He even practiced later on with Mikasa and fell and smacked his head. And I mean, he's basically 0 for 2 now. So I guess it's like a 3 strikes you're out type of deal, because pretty much it's a make or break for him the next day. He's the only one that's going to be hoisted up, because everyone else has gone through their training and done it properly. And he gets hoisted up, and as he gets hoisted up, he's like talking to himself. And he's just like, I have to do this. I have to, you know what I mean? He's basically like, I may not be the best at this, but I need to, I need to exert my will and my force. And it's really kind of cool, because he's just talking himself up. And he gets picked up wherever they hit the crank, and he gets pulled up a little bit, and he actually is able to maintain balance for a few seconds before he goes and winds up flipping upside down. So Keith Shadis over there, he comes up and he's just like, you know what? You switch belts with him, right? These belts that they have, and I guess they got some gears in them and things like that wind up helping them to balance or steady. Switches belts with them, and then all of a sudden you go and you see them go and they hoisted Eren up again, and he's just standing there like he's cool. He's not flipping. He's not nothing. So Keith goes, and I don't know. I have a feeling personally, I don't know if they'll ever tell us, but I have a feeling that maybe that Jean or one of those other asswipes that didn't want to see him succeed tampered with the belt, because he goes and says, you had a faulty belt. There was a faulty gear or mechanism or something in it. He goes, and as a matter of fact, I've never seen this particular part actually go faulty or get broken on there. So it leads me to believe that it was tampered with. Who knows? It might have even been tampered with by that Keith, because maybe he had high expectations, for Eren or something like that, and wanted to see what he could do under extreme pressure like that, right? But Eren didn't give up, didn't give in, and the episode kind of ends in this real cool way. You assume that some more training has happened and transpired, because Keith is going and riding his horse, right? And then all of a sudden Eren comes flying by, and these things are really cool for their 3D maneuvers, man. They're like it's got like a gas exhaust on the back that I think propels them forward, and then they shoot out these harpoons in various different like trees and walls and whatever structures. And then once those start reeling them in, that with the gas propels them forward with their force, and they're able to really kind of control where they go and pretty much fly through the air. So it's really, really neat. All in all, I thought it was a great episode. I know that some people, will probably talk about these slower ones, and they'll say, well, there wasn't as much action, or there wasn't nothing going on, or it's because of the budget of the. I don't know about any of that stuff. I just know that like any good action movie or whatever, the entire movie is not action. You know what I mean? There's slow parts, there's character development parts, there's building of the world, and really this is what this was. Is it was building up, everything as far as this group and this group of trainees, and it gave us some background into just some insight into some of the different characters that we're probably going to wind up seeing more of throughout the series, and some of their backstories and some of the things that push them. So ultimately, though, I guess my question for the episode would be, do you have more respect now for Eren? I mean, obviously he's been a real hothead up until this point. You kind of just almost look at him as like a kid who lost his mom and he's upset. But do you have more respect for him now? I mean, the guy was, I know Keith does. And even everybody else was like, really? He was able to stand. He was able to balance himself with a faulty gear. You know, he basically did something that was next to impossible. And I don't know, it was impressive to me. But what do you think? Are you more impressed now by Eren? Are you buying into his resolve and his whole "I'm going to kill all the Titans" type of deal, or not? So remember to leave your comments in the section there down below, and feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you think I deserve it. And we will look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation.
Remember, brothers and sisters, to share, subscribe, spread the word of the nation to others. And of course, if you like watching the videos, watching them is always much appreciated. Have a nice day.